you can ask your gynecologist about these, and they should be able to answer your questions. Unfortunately, that's not always the case in society today. Oftentimes they'll say you're too young for menopause because you're only 40, or they'll say, yeah, you're just perimenopausal. And it's not just because women are suffering.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview thoughtful, inspiring, and influential guests who are changing the way we think about what is possible in our lives, especially as we age. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager. And you know I love to hear from my audience, so leave me a comment at zestfulaging.com. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker, who was also a guest on Zestful Aging, and it's off of her CD Buffalo Motel. You can find out more about Judy on her website, judybanker.com. I know that everyone is feeling really stressed and anxious right now. We're all unsettled and feel out of control. So I created a free download for you for maintaining mental health based on my 30 years as a psychotherapist. Just go to zestfulaging.com and it is all yours. Well, as always, you know I've got my loyal Jack Russell Sparky right by my side. He is ready to go outside for a walk right after we record. So let's begin. We have a great interview for you today. Hot Flashes and Cool Topics podcast was started by two 50-something women, Colleen Rosenblum and Bridget Garrett, who were tired of women being ignored in today's media and society, painting midlife women as either in a mom's group or retired, either buying Pampers or Depends. It's no longer a secret that after 45, you start to live your best life, and it's not by sitting on a rocking chair knitting, unless that is your desire. And I might add, sometimes that is my desire. They want to reframe the dialogue to what we have and not what we lost. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks you so
much. Thanks so much for being here. I have a feeling we're going to have a lively conversation. And I know both of you have a great sense of humor. So I'm really happy to talk to you today. First, let's talk about the title. You guys have a great title, Hot Flashes and Cool Topics. Can you talk a little bit about how you came up with that?
Well, Colleen, you really kind of came up with that. We were thinking of just different words to address this. And I think, Colleen, how did that come to you?
Well, we were talking about midlife, and we wanted a title that kind of encompassed everything we were feeling. It wasn't just about, as you get older, you get hot flashes and menopause and all those things. But it was really like cool topics. Your life becomes so much more full as you get older, and there's so many topics we wanted to discuss that we thought Hot Flashes and Cool Topics kind of covers the gamut for topics. So we could talk about anything and everything for midlife and beyond.
Mm-hmm. What are the things you had in mind when you said cool topics? The hot flashes, we all know what those are, and we'll be talking about menopause in a moment. But when you talk about cool topics, what are the topics that you find are really relevant for women in middle age and post-middle age?
Well, empty nest is one of them, which, goes along with that. Now, empty nest does not affect every woman because not every woman chooses to have children. But that is one topic. We've done age spots. We've done skincare. We've done vacationing.
Ooh.
Just all kinds of things.
We love to talk travel.
Yes.
Really?
Yes,
I'm delighted to hear that. That's one of my favorite things. And you probably already know I've interviewed 2 or 3 travel folks on the podcast. That's a lot of fun. And, what I found, and I don't know if this is your experience too, is that women who, let's say, if they have kids, they're launched and they might be winding down in their career and all that, have some of them have always wanted to travel but don't even know where to start. Have you found that
Yes.
to be true?
Absolutely. And we have worked with a couple of different travel agencies that, one of the benefits of being an empty nester or even a little bit older and you're not stuck in a time for when you can leave I have a 2-week vacation time and I can only take it during this month. You can go any time of the year anywhere and you get great deals when you go off season.
Yep.
So we love to talk about places maybe you've dreamed of going and you really couldn't, but maybe you go off season and it's a little more affordable,
Oh, that's what I love. I went to Iceland I think it was December, and, we didn't see the wildflowers, but there were nobody at the geysers in the fall. Of course, it was sleeting, but it added another little dimension of, adventure.
Yeah.
And I do think you become more adventurous as you get older, You want to be able to go and see and do, and you have the luxury as you get older being able to do that a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So you guys do everything. You just think about, what are the topics that are relevant for women who are aging but still have energy and a whole half of their life, perhaps.
It's
Yeah,
really
we like to
taken
say
a life
we're an
of
umbrella.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Go ahead, Bridget.
Oh, I was just saying we just like to say we are an umbrella and just like to try to cover all of those different topics. Just anything that we find intriguing to us, or maybe someone will send in an email to us or send us a message. Just, hey, we'd really like to hear about this topic. We've done, we did, of course, Christmas shopping. We've talked to a clothing manufacturer that specializes in menopausal women and their sweat and night sweats and hot flashes. That the clothing is great for that. We've talked to stylists, makeup artists that specialize in women that are midlife. So it's been really great, and I've learned a lot doing this podcast.
And we also feel that some women feel isolated as they get older. They're maybe not in the workforce as much and their children have grown. So we try to talk about making friends and options for book clubs and bunco groups and different websites that you can now go on, like meetup.com, that have midlife groups that might be local to you.
I see. That's so just enriching the lives of women who. So talk a little bit about as Joe Blackwell calls it, the menopause. What do you want people to know about menopause?
I want them to know it's not a dirty word. And I always say that if you are lucky enough to live long enough, and you're a woman, everyone's going to go through it. And some people have more symptoms than other people. Some people don't get any symptoms, but most people do get some symptoms. And I just want people to know that it's okay to talk about it. And when you do talk about it, you learn why these things are happening to you. And then you don't feel like you are dying or if you're insane, because it wasn't talked about as much. I don't recall my mother ever talking about it. And I'm from a large family. So I do remember when I first even knew what it was, one of my older sisters was going through it. And, that was the first I even knew that was something. So I want everyone to feel free to talk about it and to maybe make it more prevalent. So we've talked to a lot of different women, and especially in England, that are bringing it even into the workplace to have it addressed in the workplace.
Isn't that fascinating? From not talking about it at all to actually, it sounds like advocating for themselves. So what are the kind of symptoms that women might be experiencing that they would make them feel like they're, as I think you said, mad or going crazy?
It's interesting because when you hear menopause or perimenopause, you immediately think hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia. There are so many psychological effects on menopause and perimenopause, like anxiety and depression, that women have no idea are related to their estrogen imbalance. So we want women to understand. We've talked to several experts, whether it be homeopathic or, medical, whether you're talking about HRTs or you're talking about diet and exercise. There probably are over 100 symptoms relatable to estrogen imbalance.
And these all have to do with hormonal shifts, is that right?
Exactly. Yes. So we want women to know that, number one, you don't have early onset Alzheimer's, because brain fog is such a common complaint. And a lot of women think they are going crazy, like Bridget said. We want women to understand when they're sitting in a gynecologist's office and they have some of these symptoms like weight gain and your midlife middle, as we call it, and brain fog, that you can ask your gynecologist about these and they should be able to answer your questions. Unfortunately, that's not always the case in society today. Oftentimes they'll say you're too young for menopause because you're only 40, or they'll say, yeah, you're just perimenopausal. And it's not just because women are suffering.
Yes. Yeah. And it was interesting, just through our guests that we've talked to, there are very few menopause specialists, gynecologists that specialize in menopause. And we've been fortunate to be able to talk to some. And I believe one of them has started a clinic, a menopause clinic. And she said there's really only about 30 similar clinics throughout the United States. So and how large the United States is, and to only have 30 of these clinics that specialize in this group of women.
Do you think that has to do with something we touched on earlier, where women who are older than, let's say, childbearing years tend to be invisible?
Oh, I think that is part of it, definitely. And I think it too, it just wasn't addressed as much. It is, I don't know if women felt they feel invisible. And I think you're right, though, that they've probably been brushed off and been told for a long time, this is part of your life. Sorry, this is just what you have to deal with. But fortunately, we are having some great doctors out there that are being advocates and doing research and saying, well, no, we can do something about this. So we're hoping to get the word out that you can ask your doctor. And if you aren't satisfied, keep looking. A lot of these doctors, a doctor we spoke to out of San Francisco, Dr. Liz Lister, she will do a phone consultation. Now, I know it'll be impossible, or not impossible, but it would probably be difficult to get the blood work there. But you could talk to her. You could have your blood work done and look at the labs. She could look at that for you. So fortunately, we're getting these doctors that are listening to women. And a lot of them are women. Now, I'm not trying to bash men, because there are some good men doctors as well. But we've just found these particular women doctors that are really pushing for this. And we're so grateful to them for that.
And have both of you had your own experience with menopausal symptoms that were distressing?
Yeah, we both have, haven't we, Colleen?
Yes, we have. I'm actually still perimenopausal, unfortunately, because I'm jealous of Bridget being postmenopausal. But I would say, mine started about age 45, and the anxiety was one of those symptoms for me personally that I had no idea was related to a hormone imbalance. I was at the point where my father was in hospice, my daughter was sick, and I just attributed it to life's, journeys. When I discovered that the anxiety was actually exacerbated, I was shocked. I had the weight gain, I had the insomnia, the night sweats, the hot flashes. Bridget had the hot flashes much worse than I did, and she'll tell about that. But I've been in perimenopause now for about 7 years, and I'm ready for it to be over. I really, really am.
She gets so excited. Like, I didn't have a period this time, and I tease her.
Yippee.
I tell her she's pregnant.
That might be another difficult situation.
That's not funny.
Yes. But no, I think I started around 40, and I started with night sweats, and I didn't know that was a thing. And I was a teacher at the time. And one of my co-teachers that's also my age started talking about night sweats. And I was like, there is a name for this?
Oh my goodness.
I didn't even know what that was. And then I started to get hot flashes during the day. And it got to the point where if I barely moved, I would break out in a sweat. I mean, I think I was having it sometimes up to 10 in an hour, hot flashes.
Oh, my
It was
goodness.
horrible. And I had weight gain. I was still exercising. I love to exercise. And it was driving me crazy because I was doing what I always did and I was gaining weight. And then I was moving less because I didn't I would go to my exercise class, but throughout the day, I didn't want to get up and do the things that I normally did because if I even barely moved, I would break out in a sweat.
Oh, wow. So it's really limiting
It really was.
your life.
And I was getting brain fog as well. And, that's about the time that a lot of women, depending on when you had your children, you are going through this when your children are in a phase where they're probably in high school or very active and getting ready to graduate and heading to college. So it's on top of that, that's stressful. So
That's a bad combination.
Yes. But then I was reluctant to go on hormone replacement therapy because I had heard about the cancer scares. And I was putting it off, trying different things that really weren't working. I went to my gynecologist, and if she didn't believe me at first that I was going through, I said, no, my periods are very sporadic, very heavy. And I was about 46 or 47, and she really didn't believe me. But then she did my blood work, and she's like, okay, yeah, your follicle count looks like you are perimenopausal. And then she put me on an antidepressant that was supposed to help. Well, that really didn't help. And I actually was looking on Groupon, just flipping through the Groupon to see what the deals were.
Yeah.
And there was a place, it was a weight loss place, but in the little thing for the weight loss place, it said, it was for some kind of, I don't know what the Groupon was for, but it said, we also do, these things and hormone replacement therapy. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to call them. And they have been wonderful. They have a nurse practitioner. They take your blood work. They check everything out. I go back every 3 months to get my blood work done just to make sure everything's good. They found out, that my thyroid levels were low.
Oh, boy.
So they have me, all my prescriptions come from a compounding pharmacy. So they're made specifically for me. And they are bioidentical, but I am also on a thyroid medication as well as estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So, and a lot of them, so the estrogen and progesterone are really called something else because they're made at a compounding pharmacy. But it's been great. And it really, for me, I know not every woman it works for them, but it works for me.
Hello, Zesties. I want to tell you about one of my all-time favorite exercise and stress reduction tools, which I am really relying on during this quarantine. But I've sung its praises for years. The benefits are seemingly endless. It's great for toning and strengthening muscles. It improves your lymph system, your metabolism. It helps with joint pain and balance. And it's even used by NASA astronauts because it's such an efficient way to exercise. And if you're older or you're worried about your balance, you can order a stabilizer bar to hang on to. I'm talking about my NEDAC Rebounder mini trampoline. I put on my music and I have my own dance party. Because for me, exercise needs to be fun and invigorating. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. Now is not the time for the philosophy of no pain, no gain, because we're in enough pain. This is a way to feel good and energized and have fun. It really does help mood as well. And I like that NEDAC is made in the USA and it is really solid. I've had mine for 15 years and it's still in great shape. The NEDAC Rebounder will help us get through this quarantine in better shape mentally and physically. And there's also a model that folds up if space is an issue. One of my clients puts it on her driveway and uses it while she's watching her kids during the quarantine. Anyway, I can't recommend NEDAC Rebounders enough. They are a worthwhile investment in your health and overall well-being, especially now. If you are interested in a mini trampoline, please don't buy a cheap one. Those can be actually dangerous, and it is really worth investing in a good quality one. And right now, if you use the coupon code just for Zestful Aging listeners, the code is Zestful, they are going to include a free cover for you. So go to needak.com. It's NEEDAK.com. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at zestfulaging.com. I really am their biggest fan. You know, it's really an interesting time for women who are, starting to go through menopause, maybe perimenopausal, but as if they have daughters, their daughters are blooming, right? And becoming these sort of sexually alive humans. And they may be going to prom or dating, all the while mothers are feeling less attractive and their bodies are changing. And that can be a hard combination for some.
I would imagine.
It can. And, I luckily for me, I didn't want to compete with my daughter, but you do see that sometimes. I think women are hanging on to youth and they don't want to let go, and they see their daughter and they want to compete with that. I think Colleen and I both, that has not been an issue for us, but yeah, you do see that happening, and it is hard because, my daughter, I have a daughter, Colleen and I both have a 24-year-old daughters, and, they may not quite understand what's going on with you either. So, and I'm hoping they will learn from us. And I hope that their menopause life is going to be easier. I hope what we're doing is going to make it easier for them.
Colleen, did you want to add anything about having a daughter blooming? And
I was just waiting. I was just going to say, when they're discovering their new lives and the new joys that it brings, you don't want to be feeling like you're somehow held back because your menopausal symptoms are just creating a block to you enjoying your life. When it becomes a part where they're actually affecting your ability to enjoy life, that's when you really do need to go find a specialist that can help you, because there are options out there, and so many women don't realize that. But there are also a time where when your daughters, I have two daughters, and when they start getting older, oftentimes for women in midlife, our anxieties start to increase. And that can affect our ability to enjoy watching them grow and watching them succeed. It is such a blessing to be able to see these little people that you made or are brought into your world to grow up and what they're like. And a lot of women are like, okay, now where do I go? What do I do? And we want to be that voice that says, your life is just beginning a second chapter or a third chapter, whatever you choose. And it's okay for you to look for your own joy. You can love your children and love watching them grow and love watching them set in those new experiences and feel a sense of, I'm a part of that, but also feel like now you can start looking back to what some of those passions you might have left behind because you were busy, not because you are upset that you are no longer, they weren't available at the time, but they're still there. That younger person is still there. Maybe go revisit her and see what she wants to do.
What would that look like? And I think that's such a great thought. And people talk about, who was that girl? Because all I've been doing is working and taking care of my family, and I kind of forgot who I was. So do you have any advice for our listeners on how to find or rediscover that woman?
Well, I know that some different books I've read have been like, what was your childhood dream? And yeah, so one thing I did after my daughter, I have two children. So my son's the older one. And then my daughter went to college, and we actually moved about 3 hours away. My husband took a new job, so we moved. And they actually were filming the TV show Nashville here. And I thought, I'm going to go back into just trying acting again. Because I did it like just in high school and community theater and things like that. And I took acting classes, and I did a few things.
Wow.
I don't do as much anymore, but I didn't take into account the late nights and all
the
that.
long days.
The long days and being in a studio, with no windows and everything all day for 14 hours. But I did try it, and it was something I always wanted to do. So I'm so glad I did that I had the time to do that. I also took tennis back up. I played tennis in high school, and when your children are little, it's hard to find the time to do that. So I started playing tennis again. So those are just two things. And then I met Colleen, and we started doing a podcast. So yeah. So just your childhood dreams. But Colleen, did you want to add anything to that?
Part of that is getting out of your comfort zone. You've spent so long taking care of your family. You know how to do it. You can take care of, your daily routine blindfolded. But can you get out of your comfort zone? Can you try something? Because as we get older, it's not necessarily about failure. You're so concerned about that in the workforce in your 20s and 30s, or when you're raising your children, or whatever you choose to do. But as you hit middle-aged, it really doesn't matter about does something succeed or fail. It's just about trying it. Because you're released of that pressure. Nobody's really paying attention to your personal growth but you. And so date your spouse if you guys have hardly had any time together if you survived the teenage years with children. Start dating them, traveling. Go out and just join a group that you maybe thought you would never join and see if you like it. If you don't, okay, try something else. It's not really about I failed at trying that or I couldn't learn to that. Get out of your comfort zone and just attempt.
I have a little story about that. I know Bridget is a tennis player, and I qualified to go out to the national games and play tennis.
Wow.
And it was the interesting thing because it was so exciting. It was out in Albuquerque, and I'm in New York. It was so exciting, and I kept seeing these women like me in the airports as we were heading out, and they had their rackets with them. I'm like, are you going to the senior games? This is really lovely. What I did not account for, and my listeners have heard this story before, but I did not know that altitude had a great impact on the tennis ball, because I live in New York and we don't have huge mountains, at least, where I am. So what was happening is, I'm a decent player, but before I even got to, stroke the ball, it was behind me because it was so much lighter. So you're really looking pretty silly. And I won a few games, but I did not win any of my matches. But what a delight to be in an area. Well, first of all, I hadn't been to Albuquerque in like 30 years, but to hike and to do these things, to eat this really authentic Mexican food, but to meet these people who came from all over the country. They had centenarians there playing basketball. I mean, it was such a thrill and a delight. The tennis was terrible, but just to go and say, yeah, I played in the senior games, it was really a thrill. And I think maybe that's what an example of what you're talking about, where like, who cares? I told the tennis was a joke. I mean, I must have looked like I have never picked up a racket. Other people were having trouble too from the East Coast, but like, I'm never going to have a career in tennis, but to sort of use that and to go somewhere and to have that adventure. I agree with you. I wouldn't have had time before, and it was such one of those bucket list kind of things.
And a gift.
That's wonderful.
It was a gift that you got to do that and appreciate your surroundings and the people you were meeting. I think when we're younger, it would have been all about the competition. What can I do? What can I achieve? But now it's like I made new friends. I went somewhere new. I discovered food and wine, and it's just about enjoying the journey.
Exactly.
And these folks, of course, were pretty zesty. I mean, they're all doing their stuff. They're playing basketball, they're biking. I mean, so these particular folks were pretty energetic and interesting and inspiring, And I think it's important to be with those people, right? That are not just like kind of waiting for time to pass.
Oh, it's similarly, Colleen and I have gone to different podcast conventions, which you probably have as well. And we did She Podcast in October, just when we started. And it was in Atlanta, so we're in Nashville, and that was really close, like a 4-hour drive. So we were like, all right, let's just go. And which was a gift that we had the time to do that we didn't have small children to consider having to take care of, or to rearrange childcare or anything like that. And then we also went to Podfest that was in Florida, and we have met so many different people. And it's so funny when you said the airport, just like you're at the airport and you see people and you start to strike up, hey, are you going there?
Yes.
We're all going to the same, we've met a friend of ours that also lives in our neighborhood that has a different podcast. She was on a different plane. We all rode to the airport together, but she was on a different flight. But she's like, hey, she's texting us, I met this great girl. You got to meet her. We got to share an Uber to the hotel. And
lovely.
So that kind of thing, it's so fun.
It is so fun.
Yeah. It's so funny because I think like 5 or 6 years ago, I never knew I'd be living where I'm living. Have done the adventures that I've done, knew anything about a podcast or the technological things to go along with it.
That's
so
right.
My brain is still working.
And learning. Talk a little bit about being a woman, middle-aged plus, who's a podcaster. Do you find that I have not yet actually been to a podcast conference, although I'm crossing my fingers that She Podcast will still be on in Scottsdale, and I'm planning to do that. But, talk a little bit about who podcasts and where you fit in, or you feel that you fit in.
Well, we started this podcast because we felt like there were a lot of great podcasts for women out there, but there wasn't one that kind of addressed it all. Like there was either a menopause podcast or an empty nester podcast or, college-age children podcast. There are very specific niches. And we wanted to be, as Bridget had said, kind of the umbrella for all midlife and beyond women. So we kind of thought, okay, if we don't find it, we'll do it ourselves. And we went to these podcast conventions really having no idea what to expect. And we threw out a Who Wants to Meet for Drinks, 40 older women who do podcasts. And we had about 12 or 13 women show up.
Perfect.
So from that, it kind of snowballed into meeting all different types of women like yourself who have a passion for this podcasting world that we knew nothing about. And it is so amazing to meet new people and educate yourself. It really ignites the passion that maybe you haven't had in a while for just knowledge and connection and learning. And we just have learned so much and connected with so many great men and women. The podcast conventions, obviously She Podcast is all female, but Podfest was everything from, there was a 10-year-old to probably 80 plus. I mean, there are podcasts for everything.
Huh.
The biggest challenge we have found is, for some reason, women over the age of 40 don't know how to find a podcast.
That they feel intimidated by the just
purple
like
square.
The purple square.
We actually did a video on how to find our podcast.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Talk to our audience, although they've already found the podcast. But so you're finding that they just say, I've heard of it, I've always wanted to do it, but how do you listen?
How do you find a podcast? Yeah. I'm overwhelmed. There's too many choices. And we're like, well, if you have an iPhone, find the purple square. If you have an Android, find the white with green square and just click in and press search.
Right. We were showing them you can, if you have an Alexa, you can ask Alexa to play your podcast.
That's great.
Yeah. Or if you go to our website, we have all our podcasts on our website if you're too nervous about your phone. So
you guys have a beautiful website, by the way.
Thanks. That's Colleen. That's all Colleen.
Yeah, and it is really, it's kind of a model for all of us who just kind of slapped some stuff up and said, I hope this works for you. That's great. Do you have any dreams or like hopes or dreams for the podcast? Thinking 5 years out, where you'd like to be?
Well, one thing I think that I have learned is that when you are doing something that you are meant to do, doors just tend to open for you. I've always been blessed with whether I was an attorney in a prior life or I taught Pilates. The doors just open when you're on the right path. So we have been very blessed to be contacted with a lot of companies and groups that want to get the word out on midlife. It's not just about menopause, it's about midlife and beyond, because this stage can last for decades. So for me, I would love to see us just grow stronger together with a voice of more women getting out there, describing midlife. If we could start doing some maybe retreats for women, midlife retreats where they can connect and explore and just not watch women run when we say the word menopause or you're in midlife. Like not see their faces go white and run for their lives. And men too. So what about you, Bridget?
Well, I agree. And I think, a big goal would be to have menopause. Like you said, I don't want it to be a dirty word anymore. And I'm so impressed with the women that are pushing to bring menopause into the workplace, to have it addressed. That is a big thing I would love to see here. And I do know we've spoke to a woman in England that she made a job out of that. That is her thing. She does talks for different companies, and she addresses that and says these things need to be addressed in your workplace. And
what is she hoping to accomplish? What's the plan there? Well,
she would like for things to be considered for women who are going through these things. To have a day, like you could have a mental health day. There needs to be a reason. Menopause needs to be addressed as a reason that you can't do this on a certain day. She said that entrance interviews for a lot of companies won't have menopause down, but their exit interviews will have the word menopause down as a reason for leaving the company.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that was fascinating. So that is something I wasn't even aware of until we started doing this podcast, and how that does affect work. There's people who have quit jobs because they felt like while they were in this stage of life, they just couldn't do it. And
do you see that as an example of ageism or gender equality?
Well,
I think it's connected. Yeah, I think they're all interrelated.
They are. Like one woman said her periods got so heavy that she bled through her outfit, and she was so mortified that she was like, I can't go back. I've just got to quit. And, that kind of thing. Nobody should have to quit a job because of that. That is something that happens to you naturally. And then I actually think back when I was teaching that I went through a time where I wasn't as organized. I was forgetting things. And I actually quit, but I didn't attribute it to that. I attributed it to my mother was getting ill, which was a part of it. And my son had already graduated high school, and something hit me that I only had a few years left with my daughter, and I wanted to be able to be there for her whenever she needed me. And I quit, but I do think part of that had to do with the phase of life I was going through and why I decided to quit. So I would love to see menopause addressed as something in the workplace, acknowledged, and, considered for everything, and women not to be treated badly or put off or taken off projects because they're in this certain phase of life.
That's fascinating. I think that might be a pretty new concept for most, to that this is a thing. It needs to be addressed. It can be pretty debilitating for some. And what are we going to do about it? We're not just going to say sorry for you, know?
Yeah.
like you wouldn't do that if someone had another kind of limitation.
Right.
And that's what the interview we're doing, it's Lauren Chiron, who is out of England. And she was saying that right now, when she deals with HR in large corporations, they're trying to decide between making it a subset or a general kind of order in a particular business. Where is it, when there's mental health issues, would you also attribute just health issues to it? So is it a blanket policy, or is it a subsection of the policy for menopause? Because you don't want to make it so that it's red flagged for women.
Oh, I see.
Because then you're kind of intermixing.
Pathologizing it.
Right. Making an excuse for it when it's just a process of life, just like any other. If you had the flu, if you, had some mental health issues, if you had a child who was sick, they kind of are in a debate situation where do we put these all in subcategories, or do we make a blanket policy? And it's really fascinating where they're going with it, because it isn't just necessarily you get a hot flash or irregular horrible periods. Right. It could be anxiety, which then connects to the mental health. And then
and then when you're not sleeping, everything gets worse.
Right.
And then there's the ageism component, the gender component. So there's so many nuances to this that you're right. It's in its infancy stages. It really is.
That's fascinating. And you and I talked about, Colleen, briefly that the UK seems to be about a year ahead of us.
Yes.
In addressing some of these issues.
And I find it funny because when we talk to the UK individuals, they seem to think that the States would be more open because we're not as conservative.
Yes.
But I think part of that is we may be more open to discussions, but not discussions about aging.
Okay.
Women don't like to talk about the aging process, which, it's just a process like anything else in life. But there's such a taboo. There's such a connotation that, you're older, you're no longer relevant, you're no longer viable. And until we get women in CEO positions that appreciate the experience that older women bring to a corporation, it's going to be hard to change that thought.
Yeah. I see that. That's really important. Where can people learn more about the two of you?
Well, we have our website, hotflashescooltopics.com.
Okay.
And we are on all social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Pinterest, we're on Twitter. We are not on TikTok.
Oh, no dancing.
No dancing.
And also, we have a Facebook group, a page, but also a group for over 40 women who really want to engage with other active and involved women, discuss issues that relate from anything to making friends to hot flashes to I'm losing my mind, I can't remember where my keys are.
And the Facebook group is under Hot Flashes Cool Topics?
Yes, there's a page that has Hot Flashes Cool Topics, and then if you go under groups, Hot Flashes Cool.
Perfect.
And then also we have a website. Notes. And I really want to let people know that our website, which is hotflashescooltopics.com, well, it's just Hot Flashes Cool Topics. There's no ampersand in there. It has midlife articles that talk about everything from financially supporting your adult children to menopause to psychology and anxiety over 50 to making friends. And we have a virtual book club for women to kind of connect virtually, which while we're taping is really important right now to connect. We have all of our episodes. We have blogs that we write, whether it's Freedom in Your 50 series or collections and all these different things. So the website is really chock full of a lot of information. So we hope people check it out.
Oh, yeah, that sounds wonderful.
And our podcast is on every podcast forum. You could find it.
And we
if you could find a podcast, you could find it.
Yeah. We have YouTube videos too. I forgot to say that, which we have a video about finding a podcast. And
oh, wow.
And we also have our roundtables on there. So we've done 2 roundtables. And once this social isolation is over, we will do more roundtables.
I see.
And we're also doing for the month of April right now, while we're in social isolation, we are doing 4:00 happy hours every Thursday. So 4:00 Central Time. So that would be 5:00 Eastern Standard Time.
Which Nicole will be guesting just.
That's
Yes,
right.
thank
This
you.
week. That's right.
Excited.
Yes.
Okay, you guys are, boy, you are really doing a great job hitting all of the platforms, and that's a lot of work and dedication. So I have to hand it to you, because I think people think podcasting is just turning on the computer and the mic, but as we know, there's a lot more to it.
You definitely learned that as we
Yeah, man, I think we all can say that. Oh, I didn't realize the interview was the easy and the, you know,
that's the easy part.
that's nothing.
Yes,
There's a lot of background work. Well, Colleen and Bridget, I really appreciate you chatting with me today about all kinds of topics related to middle age and over. This is so important, and I know that I can hear how much fun you're having, which I totally relate to, and I look forward to hearing more from you. And just to remind folks, and this will be in the show notes, but the podcast is Hot Flashes, Cool Topics. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Nicole. We
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. It's no secret that everyone's feeling pretty restless and unsettled right now. Our lives are upside down, and the future is feeling pretty uncertain. But if you're anything like me, organizing my stuff can help me feel a little calmer. It's something I can do to help me feel a little more in control and in charge of my own life. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used up. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical. It's realistic. The lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory, super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.